Anyways, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Rahul Verma. I work at Center for Policy Research, and I also teach political science at Shivnadar University in Chennai. Many of you who might have been following our work for last few years, this used to be a regular feature before elections. We used to do a couple of panel discussions, and also after every election, a dissection of the election results. Uh, for last few months, there was a hiatus after Haryana election, but hopefully we'll be back in action with this event. There would also be a follow-up of results that come on 14th. So hopefully we'll meet again, or I'll see some of you on 17th of November, Monday. We'll send invitations regarding that very, very soon. So thank you once again for joining today. And I've got two young but stellar sort of panelists to talk about what's happening in Bihar. Uh, the campaigning for phase one will sort of end today by 5 p.m. Election Commission deadline, but you all know that some of it will continue in the middle of night today and tomorrow as well. Next phase, which is on 11th of November, another 122 seats will poll. And so what I wanted to do today, I've invited one Nishant Ranjan. So Nishant is a data journalist at Hindustan Times. But it's also great to have Nishant at CPR because a couple of years ago, Nishant used to work with us at the Politics Initiative. So welcome, Nishant, for this panel discussion. And what we're going to do, Nishant and his collaborators at Hindustan Times has created a database of MLAs, members of Legislative Assembly, since 1962, so more than 6 decades, that comprises of more than 3,000 MLAs, which to me is one of a very interesting database to understand the trajectory and evolution of Bihar politics over 6 decades. So we'll figure out what has changed or not changed. They have published some pieces in last 2 weeks on this data set, but I'm sure many more pieces will come, or researchers are going to use this to understand politics of Bihar in many, many ways. So thank you, Nishant, for joining. Welcome. My second panelist is Sarthak Bagchi. Sarthak teaches political science, social science at Ahmedabad University. He is a very, very keen observer of Indian politics, and he has been writing on Bihar, but also on other aspects of Indian politics. Some of his pieces recently appeared in the Hindu and at other platforms. One of the reasons why I wanted Sarthak to be on this panel, because Sarthak has been visiting Bihar, of course, before, but as a political scientist, he has been going to some of the very same places. He went there in 2015 election, 2020 election, and now he's back in Bihar for 2025 election. So as a social scientist, this would be very, very interesting to learn how Bihar politics has evolved or changed in last 10 years or not changed. What new campaign sort of like mediums or slogans he's seeing. And these two people also, of course, one journalist and one academic, but also both of them come from like very different methodological vantage point. Nishant has a database, so he'll show us numbers, and Sarthak is a like deep ethnographic researcher. And so I think it would be a good idea to sort of like blend two different methodological insights to understand what's happening in Bihar. So thank you, Sarthak, for joining. Welcome to CPR and this sort of panel discussion on evolution of Bihar politics since 1962. So the plan is following. I won't speak anything more. I will invite Nishant to make a short presentation, 8 to 10 minutes max, show us what trends he sees in the data. After that, I'll request Sarthak to make some observation, what he sees in this data, and also add his own sort of like perspective on evolution of political elites in Bihar. And then we'll move to the second phase. And after that, we'll get participants to ask questions. I will also request them that if anyone has any question, please put it in Q&A box as we go along. And while I ask questions to Sarthak and Nishant, I'll try to weave in your points. So in that sense, there are more questions that can be taken. So again, thank you everyone for joining. Nishant, please do start with your presentation and show us what we know about Bihar politics.
Thank you, Rahul. Let me share my screen. Rahul, is PPT visible?
PPT is visible. You can make it slightly
Yes.
bigger. So go to slideshow and just.
Yes.
Yes, great.
Yes. So as Rahul has already introduced uh, this database, but precisely this database consists 3,629 legislators that Bihar have had from 1962 to 2020. And a caveat needs to be added that this database includes only those constituencies which are still the part of Bihar. That means that it excludes constituency that went to Jharkhand post the bifurcation of a state in 2000. This is due to make those periods comparative. And what makes this task rewarding is the case that Bihar is the only state which has officially released its caste survey data in 2023. And Bihar has had 239 MLAs until 1971. And since 77, it has 243 MLAs. And currently, the number is also the same, that is 243. The caste survey in Bihar divides backward castes into broadly two categories, that is backward one and backward classes two, that is also known as extremely backward castes in Bihar. And they are among the biggest caste clusters in Bihar, and they include a share of nearly 36%. And out of those 36, Hindu backward caste is 25.1 and Muslim backward caste percentage includes 10.2 percent points. So simple cross tab of broader categories shows that backward classes have greatest share in this database. That is, they comprise almost 1,300 MLAs in Bihar, followed by general categories, which are also upper caste categories and scheduled caste. But the share of scheduled caste remains same at largely between 14 to 16%, and this is broadly due to institutional norms of providing affirmative action. And one point that is noteworthy to say that it is Bihar is not primordial case of backward versus forward caste struggling to or vying for power, but it is the jati, that is subcaste within broader category, that matters more in Bihar since at least 1990 when Lalu Prasad Yadav came to the power for the first time. And it has broadly get diversified since 2005 when Nitish took the reign of state as a CM. And so in this database, Yadav caste, which has a population share of almost 14.5% in Bihar as per caste survey, their share in MLA is also highest, around 20.5%. That is 734 MLAs, and they are followed by Rajputs, Bhumihars, and Brahmins, which fall in the larger category of upper castes or general category. And Hindu upper caste such as Bhumihar, which had just a share of 2.9% in population, have a share of 13 to 14% in this database, which come as a relatively 4 times greater than their share in overall population of the state. And one fact that is to be noted is that just 10 Hindu subcastes with a population of almost 45% account for 81% of total MLAs in this database. This also means that the relative share of this 10 castes in MLA database is around 1.8, which shows over-representation of these subcastes in total MLA. And this is a scattered plot that will make things much easier to understand. See the case of Yadav, which has a population of around 14% and they have a share of 20%. But the relative share of Yadav is not much greater when compared to their population. This is due to the fact that since 1990, most of the Yadav MLAs, or at least a large proportion of Yadav MLAs, are winning from only a single alliance, that is RJD and plus. BJP still have a very low share of Yadav MLAs. And we will see later also the party selection of candidates and castes. So it's also visible that other castes, other than this dominant caste, which have a share of at least 2%, they have a population of 23 to 25%, but their share in MLA is below 5%, which also speaks about how unrepresented they are in the political arena of Bihar. Or we can say that the politics of Bihar is still dominated by upper castes and a few dominant castes from other backward class groups. And this table broadly provides us an overlook about the evolution of caste in the assembly. As we can see that backward classes, that is Hindu backward classes, have a share of around 28% in 1962, and their share has almost become 38% in the current assembly, that is 2020. And the general category witnessed highest fall in their share, that is almost half of, they are almost half of the share in 1962, around 48%, and their share in latest assembly is 26%. As I have already mentioned, the share of scheduled caste almost remain similar due to institutional norms. And one noteworthy point is that extremely backward castes, they have witnessed a significant increase in their share in MLAs, almost 10.5 percentage points increase between 1962 and 2020. The share of Muslim remains almost similar. It was lowest in 2005 when the NDA come to the power for the first time in the state, and it was highest in 1984, the election that was held after the assassination of Indira Gandhi. And scheduled tribes are very minuscule as a share of population in state, and you can see the same in this table also. Now moving to how the share of broader subcaste change across the years. Subcaste means jatis, that how the number of Yadavs evolved across the years, or how the number of overall upper caste, Bhumihar, Rajputs and Brahmins evolved over the years. Next chart will show the same thing. From this chart, what I can infer is that the biggest drop in share is for two castes, that is Rajput and Brahmins, and both of them belong to greatest category of upper caste, broader category of upper caste. Rajput witnessed their share decreasing from almost 20.1 percentage in 62 to 11.1 percentage in 2020, which is almost 9 percentage points fall in their share. And the share of Brahmin also decreased by 6 percentage points. And the share of another upper caste, Bhumiyar, largely remains similar. And the decrease in share of Brahmins and Rajput has largely been compensated by increase in the share of Yadav caste. Uh, and Yadav, as we can see that Yadav has witnessed almost 11.5 percentage points increase in their share. And these are the broad, almost an 8 to 10 castes that have a share of greater than almost 75 to percent in overall database across state assembly elections, across 15 assembly elections from 62 to 2020. And also, it's also, when we talk about Bihar, it's also important to classify these 6 decades into broader, 3 broader eras. That is the Congress rule, including a brief hiatus from 1978 to 80, when the Janata Party came to the power in the state for almost 2 years. So the period from 1962 to 85 has been classified as pre-Lalu Yadav period, and Lalu Yadav era is between 1990 to 2000, and post 2000 era is Nitish Kumar. So
Nishant, 2-3 minutes to wrap up, please.
yes. So backward classes that we can see have greatest during Lalu Yadav period. And as we also know that the Congress period in the state has largely been defined as a upper caste dominance or a coalition of extremes. That is upper caste aligning with a section of Dalits and Muslims to grab power in the state. And we can see that that thing has changed with the ascendancy of Lalu Prasad Yadav in the political arena of Bihar. And I will take 2-3 more minutes and then I will wrap up. So this is party-wise share of MLAs. Thanks to the historical dominance of Congress in Bihar for almost 4 decades post-independence, Congress still has the highest share in database. And upper caste still has the greatest share in Congress party, though Congress party is unable to form a government in the state for the past 35 years. And other backward caste has a greater share in parties like RJD, JDU. And this is the caste composition in 2025 assembly election, that is elections that is ongoing. So we can see that NDA tops in providing tickets to upper castes, while Mahagathbandhan leads in backward caste candidates. And Muslim has a largely greater share in Mahagathbandhan because in NDA there are only 5 Muslim candidates, 4 from JDU and a single candidate from LJP. BJP is not fielding a single Muslim candidate this time. And this is broadly the party-wise share in broader category of candidates. We can see that BJP has almost 49% of 49% of BJP total candidates are upper caste, which is like much greater than any party. And RJD has a greater share in OBC, backward class candidates, and out of 143 candidates of RJD, there are 43 Yadavas, which is almost 38 to 37% in share of their total candidates. Rahul, yes, that's all, Rahul.
Thank you, Nishant. Thank you for sharing this you may remove your sort of presentation. Great. So just to summarize this for everyone, Nishant presented a lot of data, but here is my takeaway. One is like overall, forward caste or general caste seem to be represented at least three times their population. Muslim is underrepresented at least by half of its population. But the biggest underrepresented group in Bihar politics is EBCs, which is almost one-fifth of its sort of like size. So if EBCs are 25% of the population, overall they just have 5% of MLAs in the database. And that in some ways signal why do you see rise of EBC politics in last 10 to 15 years in Bihar? The second, I think, is the over time sort of like trend. And the over time trend is basically what Nishant also described, like pre-Lalu and post-Lalu politics in that sense. So three phases. Uh, what seems to be happening that the while forwardcast continue to dominate the database, their share has declined, and that decline is for Rajput Brahmins and slightly for Bhumihars as well. The share of backward caste has increased, but that increase is being largely led by Yadavs. EBC's proportion have also increased, but very like small. Like one can say it has increased from 5 to 10, so it has doubled, but they still remain sort of like half of their population. And the third sort of like takeaway for me is in some ways the last slide, especially looking at, so yes, there is some kind of like MGB focuses on backward caste and Muslim, that's their combination. And NDA focuses much more on upper caste and slightly more on EBCs, and they also have OBCs, but or backward caste, mostly Yadav, Gurmeens, and Kushwas, but they don't give tickets to Muslim. But what it sort of like, and this is where I would want sort of like Sarthak comments on some of the observations that I'm making, but also his perspective. It seems that these in these sort of like big coalition, the politics of representation is being right. Each party is carrying weight of one caste or one group, and then they are basically subletting the representation to other. Right. For example, it seems among the MGB backward caste, that weight is led by RJD. Forward caste is Congress, and EBCs is led by VIP, and Dalits is led by CPM. And same if you see even in NDA, right? BJP leads the upper caste, EBCs is with JDU, and then LJP and HAM doing the bit on Dalits. So pol politics of representation is being subletted in that sense. So Sarthak, your own sort of like comments on what we saw in the database, but what you have seen and any comments that you might want to add.
Right. Thank you so much, Rahul, for organizing this. And also thanks to Nishant and his team for putting together this very exhaustive and extensive database. And I think it's really good to have a certain kind of an empirical backing to a large number of debates or kind of, talks that have been going on about politics in Bihar, that these are actually situated around caste, and how is that caste politics in Bihar represented, or rather, how does it look as a representative form of politics, is very clearly emerging out. And especially some of the binaries are being challenged, the forward versus backward narrative, of course. Now, we also have this idea, which is not, again, a lot of these things which are pointed out by Nishant's data are actually not something new, but I mean, they have been floating around in the academic discourse since at least the 1970s, when the upsurge, or when some kind of a democratic upsurge was going on, and a social churning was taking place in the Hindi heartland through the advent of the socialist politics, right? So if you look at Bihar was also one of the first states to get a Dalit chief minister, Bola Paswan Shastri. And then the rise of backward caste chief ministers were already there. One of the first ones were actually put in place by Congress, because if you look at the Congress era of domination in Bihar from 1952 to 1967 onward, it was again a very upper caste dominated period, right? So it was the leadership of Bhumihar and Rajput, and later on by the Kayasthas, KB Sahai. So all of that also led to a certain kind of a anti-upper caste mobilization within the socialist groups also, which ultimately put in place like people like BP Mandal in power, and then Karpuri Thakur, of course, the most popular among the backward caste, and later we know that among the EBC leaders also. And I think before moving into certain other analysis, I would also like to explain a little bit about this phenomenon of the Yadav domination. And if we look at it also a little bit in a historical sense, I mean, this idea of the Yadav domination, or the Yadav, which is in Lalu period, it is getting very, solidified and called as a Yadavization of politics almost. But this has its antecedents in as far back in the early 20th century, in the 1920s and the 1930s. In fact, as you know, the colonial authorities had given representative power in Bihar when it was a part of the Bihar Odisha province. That time already we had caste associations of the Yadavs, right? The Gwala Mahasangh and others, and also we had BP Mandal's father, Rajbihari Mandal, in Bhagalpur and Madhepura. They were talking about politicization of the Yadav and mobilization at the ground level. So that was already happening, right? And that churning also ultimately resulted in, we see the Triveni Sangh, which happens in 1933. And there we see the backward caste combination coming together in the form of this Yadav trinity of the Yadav, Kurmi, and Koiri, right? And that is again a very big point of assertion of the backward caste. In fact, that is also something which draws this idea of the division between the backward caste. That is, there is an upper backward caste which comprises of the four castes, largely of the Yadav, Koiri, Kurmi, and Bania, right? And then there is the lower backward caste, which is now which was put in the Annexure 1, and which is basically the EBCs, right? The most backward caste or the extremely backward caste. And we see that that surge of over representation of the upper backwards among this backward caste assertion is also happening on the basis of certain economic changes in Bihar, right? So along with the redistribution of land after the abolition of zamindari system, right, when a lot of the land which was redistributed went to these intermediary castes, or the Yadavs or the Kurmis and the Koiris, which they also were able to capitulate, or were able to capitalize on this land by the economic successes which followed in the Green Revolution. So there is and also with the urbanization around Patna and Danapur and other places, which Shaibal Gupta also writes about in his articles in EPW, that there is an agro-capitalism which this intermediary caste is able to gain from. And we see, because again, I mean, there are two lines which come to my mind. One is this idea that by Jayaprakash Narayan, who famously once said that caste is the biggest political party in Bihar. And we also understand, we also have to understand the poverty of caste, or the, caste and poverty have a very intrinsic linkage, right? So we see that, this economic better off of this, economic development and their crucial role or dominance that these upper backwards come to, enforce in the political economy structures of Bihar, is also helping them to or is also being accentuated by their political representation, and is also helping their political representation in some places. So therefore, definitely there is a link. And if we look at the caste census or the caste survey data on poverty, we find that it is among the EBCs there are so many jatis, especially like, jatis like Gangota and Kevert and, Kahar and Malla also, even which not only find less representation in the political sphere, but they are also the communities among which we have very high rates of poverty, wherein, the minimum criteria which has been fixed by the caste survey in Bihar is for a family to be declared as a poor family is earning below 6,000 rupees per month, right? That's about around 72,000 rupees per year annual income. And that there are almost 40 to 45% of families within these subcastes, also among the EBCs, about several subcasts of the EBCs, which is a very glaring number, that how it's not only the political marginalization, but also the economic marginalization among the EBCs, right? So that is one factor which talks about, what is basically the holding back of this Bihar growth story that Nitish Kumar is supposed to have put down, right, from 2005 onwards. That's one aspect. The second aspect is, when we look at this data or this kind of data, and it's also important to understand, of course, that of representation at the assembly level is also very important. But I think for a closer understanding of how this social churning and democratic assertion is happening, if we even look at the grassroots level, I think that is something which is very important to look at the panchayat elections, right? So under Karpuri Thakur, when he was the chief minister in 1977, uh, along with the implementation of the Mungeri Lal Commission report, and thereby first getting around 26% reservations, 12% to the EBCs, 8% to the OBCs, upper backwards, 3% each to women and economically backward upper castes. He also did something, two substantial policy decisions, which I think changed and helped in changing the socio-economic and socio-political platform or socio-political, tableau of Bihar. One is removal of English as a compulsory subject for higher education for class 10 metric, right? This empowered a lot of people, a lot of students who were, studying in Hindi to aspire to higher educational degrees. One of them was also Lalu Yadav, for that matter, right? So that is one thing. Second is also it also enabled a lot of students to come to higher education and aspire for government jobs. Second is starting the Panchayati Raj elections in 1978. And between 1978 and 2001, there was no Panchayati Raj elections. But 1978, when the Panchayati Raj elections happened, there was a certain kind of a churning which happened at the grassroots level, and people started taking their votes very seriously. In people in Bihar say that vote jiyan nahi karbe, so we don't want to waste our vote. So the value of vote is recognized by people, and the adult franchise, even if we say that we had universal adult franchise in 1950s onward, it is actually not before Lalu Prasad Yadav's rule in the chief minister's position, and along with the conjunction of TN Session as the election commissioner in Bihar, that 1995 is actually seen as the first time that the EBC voters are able to vote freely. These are also the most of the voters who are working as laborers and attached to farm contract laborers, or sometimes even bonded laborers in farms. They were also the ones who were basically in occupational roles in many villages. So that patron-client relation was forcing a lot of people to to not exercise the independence or the liberation of a free choice of voting, which actually happened more towards 1995 onwards. So when we see that there is an EBC kind of upsurge, and this is clearly defined, clearly visible by what Nishant presented, that in the Lalu era, we see that this change is happening, EBC representation is going up. But actually in the Nitish Kumar era, when the Panchayati Raj reforms are in place, he ensures that there is a law and order, there are smooth, free and fair elections are happening, along with a more strict and more binding election commission. That time we see that the EBC representation is also emerging and EBC leadership is emerging. Before that, we had seen that there were symbolic leaderships. Of course, we had a speaker, EBC speaker in Dhanik Lal Mandal in 1960s. Of course, Karpuri Thakur as the chief minister also. But the real change happened when people started exercising their franchise more seriously, realizing the power of their vote more seriously. And this is due to structural changes. And again, the kind of reservations, 20% reservation for EBC in Panchayati Raj introduced by Nitish Kumar in his first term, right? That kind of opened up, and there was this feeling. I mean, when I started interviewing people in the villages in 2015, I would often come across this term that upper caste people would say, "Dukhiya ban gaya mukhiya." So earlier, the EBC or somebody who would not be given that idea of a dignity or a certain kind of a self-respect, they were now in positions of power. And now Mukhia is an important position. People have to go to the Mukhia for getting things done. And that gives also people, a sense of dignity, right? So this is something that, the story of dignity and development and caste politics and democratic upsurge, these are all very intertwined and very, very, very carefully assimilated in this entire idea. So I think the narratives, when we go for whether it is backward versus forward, whether it is the story of women empowerment also, I think it's also important for us to understand even some things like I said about the political economy conditions, right, which favored this rise of the backward caste or the upper backwards. I think it's very important for us to also understand that the narratives that play on the ground are much more complex and much more nuanced than some things which we often find as one binary or the other, like caste versus development or forward versus backward. So I think I would stop here maybe, and then maybe we can take more questions and more discussion.
Great. Thank you, Sarthak, for doing this long arc of Bihar politics. Of course, you reflected on the data, but also like your own perspective and knowledge on Bihar. And I like your point about like this arc is basically a story of dignity, development, and democracy. Some of it has moved in right directions, but it's like always a work in progress. But also thank you for sort of like reflecting on this data set, telling us why it's useful, but also what could be done with it, or what are the shortcomings that one needs to look more. Let me sort of again just to ask all the sort of like people in audience, if you have questions, please type on Q&A. I can't ask like given the system, it would be difficult for me to ask you to ask your question. But if you put on Q&A, I can definitely sort of like weave in through my questions to both Nishant and Sarthak. So Nishant, let me come back to you and ask you some very sort of like basic questions that has been raised by people, so that there's just little confusion regarding data gathering process. So
Yes.
there are three things I want you to quickly tell us. One is, how did you get the caste of MLA? They don't tell us in affidavit. Two, what does EBC include, and what does BC include? Just so that again there is lesser confusion on this. And third is basically. Why did you just do MLAs? Why not do all candidates? Your old friend Kanu is making you work more.
Yes, I can see.
Huh.
So yes, subcaste or even broader category details are not a part of official records, at least in Bihar. But in states like UP, caste and subcaste do form a part of official records. But in Bihar, there is no official record. So I get the name of all the MLAs, excluding by-elections, from ECI statistical reports. And I visited Vidhan Sabha libraries, where there are personal speeches, memoirs of old members, to at least get a sense of their broader categories. And I have also visited offices of political parties, including RJD, BJP, CPI, ML, CPM. And most importantly, I took interview of 8 MLAs and 2 MPs who were elected to the office before 1990. Because though they are not part of official record, but they are not impossible to collect since for past 25 years. But the biggest challenge is to get the subcaste of say MLAs who were elected to the office 40 to 50 years ago. So this interview with MLAs and MP helped in vetting my data. So almost I can't fully claim that all 620 names must have been correct. There should be some minor errors which I can't rule out. Yes. And in Bihar, at least at data from caste census, there are 30 backward castes, BC. And backward castes include both Hindu backward caste and Muslim backward caste. So Hindu backward castes, backward classes, as mentioned in caste survey, they are almost 25% of population. And Muslim backward caste classes, they are 1.8 to 2%. And EBC, which are extremely backward classes, again, EBC include both Hindu caste as well as Muslim caste. So out of those 36%, which is share of EBC in total population share, the share of Hindu extremely backward classes is 25% and Muslim backward classes share is 11%. When we come to scheduled caste category, there is no scheduled caste among the Muslims. All scheduled castes in Bihar belong to Hindu religion. Which one is one more question which Kanu was asking?
Kanu was asking, can you not just, why did you just do 3,000 MLAs? If you multiply for each MLA, there must be 5 candidates at minimum. Why didn't you collect data on 15?
So yes, so that needs greater resources as well as much time. So for time being, I have collected only MLA details, and this also took more than 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. And just to add to, I think what Kanu is asking, I think for last 2, 3 elections, people have started documenting this information at candidate level, Kanu. For older candidates, it would be very, very difficult to get that information. So I think future, next time, we will have some analysis of candidates as well. Great. Okay.
If I can just
yes.
So a lot of the regional newspapers, or at least Hindi newspapers in Bihar and UP also, similarly Marathi newspapers in Maharashtra, they do detailed analysis or detailed caste profiles or social profiles of the candidates, especially in the coverage during elections. So I mean, I think one of the major important source or resource that political scientists can look at for understanding or deriving caste information is to look very closely at the local newspapers in different languages. Usually we stick to mainstream English newspapers where these kind of profiles are not available fully, unless somebody is doing excellent work like Nishant.
Oh, great. Now I have a couple of questions from the list. So Sumit ji, you are raising your hand. Uh, uh, please ask your question on Q&A. अगर आप टाइप कर देंगे तो मैं आपका क्वेश्चन ले लूंगा. I can't ask you to ask your question in voice mode. Sarthak, there are a couple of questions. I think you'll be able to better reflect on that. One question is about like this churn, right? What you call as democratic upsurge, rise of OBC and Dalit leadership. Would you call this as democratization of politics or simply replacement of one elite versus other? Two, I think Nishant might have answer to this, but he like basically clubbed all Muslim MLAs as one category while showing maybe he has data on dissection, but that's a different matter. We know what we are going to see in that data. Do you, from your own sense, see any divergence in sort of like pattern of both elite as well as voting among sort of like Muslims, like, the sort of like the upper caste of Muslims, what we call as Sheikh Sayyids, versus those who are lower caste, Pasmanda Muslim. So on these two questions, basically.
Right. So actually, this churning has, of course, I mean, no churning would have a ultimate resolution to the existing conflicts that exist in society. But I think what is happening is, even in terms of, there is certainly, we can understand that there is certainly some kind of a, replacement of elites. Among the backwards, we saw that, because of their ability to control and gain from the political economy structures, the upper OBCs or the upper BCs were able to uh, uh, gain through the replacement of the upper caste elites, right, and emerge as the new elites. Even in the EBCs, we see that more representation is given to, and EBCs may, this is more like the numerical play. So even the idea that 36% or 25% for the Hindu EBCs, there are about 88 jatis among the 25%, right? And the point or the consolidation or political consolidation happens or is a challenge because of the heterogeneity of this group. Because there are only about 5 or 4 communities like the Dhanuks or Malla or Teli and even Kanu, who have a population of about 2% or between 1 to 3% of population. Rest all are very minuscule population, which is very difficult to, I mean, which is again, rampant with poverty and also crisis of leadership, lack of awareness, lack of also a certain sense of a solidarity. And we see that, even among these parties also there some kind of a effort sometimes to stitch together a coalition of socially similar kind of or socially similarly positioned jatis, like the example of Nishad community, which has about 22 jatis from the EBCs, and together they form a population group of around 9.6% of the population according to the caste survey. But then leadership, when it comes to distribution of tickets, we find that most of the leadership is with the Mallah community, which has about 2.6%, right? The son of Mallah, which is Mukesh Sahni, getting a kind of a deputy chief minister nomination in the Mahagathbandhan. And then we see that the other communities, other 21 subcastes or the 20 subcastes, which are also in this coalition, kind of fight for survival or are in the shadows. This is a problem even among the Muslims also, even among the Pasmanda Muslim, which was a very serious kind of a political movement against the kind of dominance of the Sheikh and the Sayyid Pathan Muslims. Because if you look at the Pasmanda population in Bihar, it's largely centered in the Simanchal region, and RJD, which is a party known for giving a lot of Muslim representation, used to generally give Muslim tickets or tickets to Muslim candidates in from the Sayyid and Sheikh, and not so much in the EBC Muslim. And the percentages differ, right? And that upper caste Muslim representation is mostly in the Bhojpur belt in Siwan and in Chhapra, Ara, whereas the JDU started giving more representation to the Pasmanda Muslims. Even this time in 2025, if I'm not wrong, the Congress has given more tickets to Pasmanda Muslims as compared to the RJD within the Mahagathbandhan also. And within the Pasmandas also, we find that there are certain communities like the Momins or the Rains, which get more representation as compared to the other communities. And that is definitely a challenge, but but again, this is a democratic experiment, and it also allows parties to form coalitions amongst each other, to form such kind of groups, and make their claims on parties as well as on the state.
Great. Thank you, Sarthak, for sort of reflecting on some of those questions. Uh, Nishant, there are a couple of more questions which you can reflect, and then I'll come back to Sarthak again.
Yes,
One is by Beena Agarwal, which is, are there any granular surveys which helps us assess to extent people don't vote for their caste candidate, but vote according to the position of the candidate on relevant issues, meaning like caste matters less, but issues matter more, because I think, and you might also be partly guilty of what I think is happening. Uh, Whenever elections happen, the most of the conversation basically gets centered around caste. Is that the only thing that matters to voters in Bihar or in other state? That's one thing. Uh, Two, if you can sort of like reflect on something like what is else possible from this data? See, you have collected information on caste, but and you told us like the trajectory of which caste is getting more represented or less represented. When did the change happen? But what could else be done with this data? There are a lot of PhD scholars and others who have joined. How can one use this data for other kind of research?
Yes, sure. So I have also disaggregated the data sets to district levels through spatial mapping.
Hmm.
And we know that most government surveys conducted by National Simple Survey Organization, they're up to the level of district and
Hmm.
broader regions. And
Hmm.
even National Family Health Survey mentions uh, caste levels up to district level and several broader socio-human development indicators, right?
Hmm.
So at least for time being, we can see say a relationship between the share of OBC caste in say area district
Hmm.
to their share in MLAs, or is there something that how economics is impacting this selection? So one thing I like to mention that when I did an analysis, I find a perfect correlation between uh, percentage of people in highest income category, that is greater than 50,000 per month, and their share in total candidate share. So R squared value 0.7. So at
Hmm.
uh, so so this data is up to district level. We can match it to any other surveys.
Okay.
So this is one thing.
Huh.
And uh, coming back to first question, you
Huh.
asked that why caste is important in Bihar. So caste is important, what I think in most of Indian states, but uh, it is more important in Bihar because see, economically Bihar is uh, much backward than other states when we see per capita income
Hmm.
or total GDP. So this rural-urban divide in Bihar is still some sort of more prominent when we see this divide in say states like Gujarat or Maharashtra.
Hmm.
So due to this rural-urban divide, caste becomes a tool of mobilization
Huh.
or some sort of getting upward mobilization.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
in Bihar, we can say that caste mobilization or politicization of caste is a sort of concentrated form of politics, or it is
Okay.
becoming concentrated form of politics.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Nishant. Sarthak, I'm going to pick up a couple of questions. So again, a reminder, if anyone has any question, please put on the Q&A box. I'm trying to weave in those questions to the panelist. We'll end in 10 minutes. So those would be sort of like last set of questions that I can take. Sarthak, I basically read through some of those questions and I'm like this will require your perspective of what you've been seeing in Bihar for last 10, 15 years. One is on welfare politics, which is especially given that like everyone is promising everything. whatever they can, and we saw the NDA government, especially Nitish Kumar, just before the election dates were announced, like gave a grant of 10,000 rupees to lakhs of women, and then there are promises of jobs and other things which all parties are making. So the question on welfare is it sort of like caste neutral? Is it sort of like creating a constituency where caste doesn't matter, or welfare is sort of like caste coded in that sense? That's first kind of question. Two, I think, though we know the answer, but is it something different about Bihar, where upper caste continue to be overrepresented despite sort of like 35 years of backward caste politics, and a lot of parties from poorer segments, sort of like or lower caste coming up? Still, like they are twice. If the population of upper caste is 15 to 18%, and their share in MLAs even now is more than 30-35%. So what is about the over representation of upper caste? And finally, like, or let's just answer two questions. I think
Yeah,
these two will take.
right. Yeah. So to answer with your second question first, I think because it also couples with another question which was asked about what is the impact of the caste survey then? Because if upper caste are only getting more representation, then how is the caste survey helping? So I think a social churning or a political churning takes time in building. I mean, the dominance of the upper caste has been there, and in this, I think it is more to see in the disaggregation of the parties. National parties tend to follow the upper caste mobilization route, and like follow the kind of coalition of extremes. If you look at the Congress dominance or the Congress system was based on this kind of coalition of extremes, that you have the upper caste and then you also have the most marginalized, which is the maybe the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes and the Muslims, right? This is how Congress dominated in the 50s and 60s. Similarly, we also find that the BJP is also trying to follow a similar mode when they're getting the upper caste votes and they're also getting the votes from the Dalits and from the barring the Muslims, but getting votes from the Dalits and the EBCs, right? So the coalition of extreme is more forged very clearly by national parties. If you look at the regional parties in Bihar, they are clearly not giving that many tickets to or that many candidates to upper caste, but there we see the actual backward caste assertion. So in states wherein we see, and this is again my hypothesis, maybe we need to check this, in states where we have very strong regional parties, we find that the upper caste domination is restricted or is checked, or at least it is contested. Uh, I mean, look at, by upper caste, I don't just mean the upper caste or the general, but also the dominant caste. Like, look at the case of Gujarat. The last backward caste assertion in Gujarat happened in 1985 when the Kham happened, right? And after that, I mean, after that political success, the resurgence of the Patidar community and the dominant caste kind of established that the dominant caste would be Patidar and backward caste assertions would not be repeated by any. And again, Gujarat is a state which is dominated by national parties, right? Two national parties. So I think we need to really look at the importance of democratic representativeness and democratic assertion from the perspective of the regional parties and strong regional parties. That's one point. Second point is just to understand that social churning, like even if we look at the backward caste assertion, from 1990 onwards, in 1990, 1995 elections, 1995 was also the elections when Yadavs were the maximum number of MLAs, right? After that, it has only come down. But from 1990, 1991 Lok Sabha, 1990 State Assembly, and 1995 State Assembly elections, the turnaround in Bihar or the MLA caste character, upper caste lost their dominance, right? And it has always been a BC dominated assembly. And that domination has never been upturned till now. So in those 40 years since 1995. So whereas the Yadav resurgence or the Triveni Sangh happened in 1933, but for this assertion to come in place effectively, it was only in 1995 that this political churning was, finally able to translate on the ground and also enforce itself and establish itself, right? Not only coming as an outlier or a certain kind of an anomaly in the process, but defining the process, becoming the process wherein we actually determine politics as pre-Lalu and post-Lalu era, right? And not like, not Sri Krishna Babu or KB Sahai or that kind of thing.
Sure.
So this time, it takes time. With the
Mm.
EBC, with the caste survey result, the maximum idea that we, or I mean, a lot of political observers, including myself, had was this will allow a lot of the numerically significant and numerically marginal parties also, or marginal communities also, to make claims on the political system, to make claims on parties for leadership, for taking them seriously. And that has happened. Look at how son of Malla, because Mukesh Sahni has dominated headlines and forced to be nominated. I mean, even if I know, and anybody who studies ABC politics closely would know that Mukesh Sahni is not getting all the votes of the EBCs. He's not even getting all the votes of the Mallas, right? A lot of Mallas are actually voting for BJP and they're fascinated by Modi. But this idea that assertion or claim making can happen, and this is some way one of the first steps towards a more representative politics.
Thanks, Sarthak. Uh, do you want to comment something on sort of like this welfare,
Oh, yes, sorry.
the
Yes, yes.
caste coded, caste neutral, but also on like if like women voters welfare, since this
Yeah.
is
So, thank you. Sorry, I forgot about that
Oh,
question.
that's
So, yes, of course, the idea of universalizing welfare or universal distribution of welfare is that it will not be caste limited or caste defined, but it will be creating a caste neutral voter base. A lot of the media, narrative is also about Nitish Kumar cultivating a caste neutral constituency for himself. Actually, if you look at 2015 elections, when I was doing my field work, Nitish Kumar was with the Mahagathbandhan, he was with Lalu, right? And 2025, he is with the NDA. Look at the voting pattern, or look at his acceptance among the upper caste women, right? The Savarna women. It has changed. So Savarna women who have also been liberated, who have also felt more secure, more safety, right? One of the ideas, even if they have not been received they are not the Jivika Didis, maybe they are not receiving money and they are not receiving pensions, maybe. But if they are feeling voting for Nitish Kumar on the sense of security, law and order, and on those basis, uh, there was a kind of hesitance to support Nitish in 2015, which is not there in 2025, right? So even if we say that you're as a woman you're voting more freely, but actually there is caste plays an important role in the way in which you're I mean, so we even asked people that who influences or whom do you consult during your making your voting choice. Unfortunately, a large number of women still rely on family or relatives or somebody in the family and vote accordingly, right? And again, this is not there is a change, there is a churning, but that churning is also a bottom up churning. It is happening among the backward caste or the EBCs. These are the women who go to the polling booths at 7 o'clock in the morning with a sickle in hand and to go vote and then go and work in the farm, right? So खेत में खटना है, उसके पहले वोट देना है, and these are the women who are voting on their own mind. But the Savarna women, I mean, by being at the polling booth, I have seen they are arriving, they are being taken, they are being carried to the polling booth under they are always under observation, or they are under the influence of the. I mean, I'm not saying that all of them are subjugated. I mean, I'm not saying that, but the idea that this idea of a caste neutral voting block among the women is also, I think it is not the entire picture. It of course it definitely paints a nice picture, and one would like to believe that, but the reality is not working exactly like that kind of an idea. So definitely, even if we know that welfare has percolated to the bottom, that idea of shedding the caste and voting for Nitish Kumar or anybody who is giving this welfare is not really that clear.
Okay, great. Last question to both of you, and same question. And I want like Nishant to use his sort of like data skills to answer these questions, and Sarthak, your sort of like observations on the field. Since whenever we talk about Bihar elections, since Bihar sends one of the largest sort of like migrants outside the state, and we recently had, saw glimpses of all kinds of things on train, people trying to return for Chhat Puja, and parties hoping some of them will stay back till the vote happens. Everyone is basically saying this is the last time you had to go out and come back. From next time, you like just tell your employer that you'll work in state of Bihar. Nishant, what is the estimate, if you have any, of the number of sort of like migrants? Is it some areas which will be more impacted by migrant vote, and some parties will have more benefit? That's and what are you hearing, Sarthak? Since last time, 2020 election, it also happened during COVID when a lot of people had walked back home, right? And so, what has changed this time? So, quick answers, like 1.5, 2 minutes each. And this is the last question. So,
Yeah.
Nishant first, and then Sarthak, you have the last word.
So yes, Bihar indeed has like a biggest share of interstate migrants, and most of them are circular migrants. And as per data from a caste survey as well as NSSO, backward classes or extremely backward classes constitute biggest share in migrant population. And they are also circular migrants that they come and go from source and destination. And as we know that EBC voters, so a greatest share in migrant population, are mostly or solidly grounded with Nitish Kumar. And there is also a regional skew, say that the regions of northern Bihar or Simanchal, they also have a bigger share in state migrant population. And regions like say Patna, Magad, there is not much migration in this region. So yes, in Simanchal region, even Muslim migrants are solidly with Mahagathbandhan or largely with Congress and RJD, and EBC migrants of different castes like such Sarthak had mentioned, Gangota, Gangai, Kahar, Lohar, Bildar. These are the castes that are known as silent voters, and they largely vote for Nitish Kumar, at least for the past 20 years. And upper castes are also migrants, but most of them are like permanent migrants. So there is not much that they can significantly impact voting pattern. But indeed, EBC and Muslim migrants or backward class migrants, they do impact elections in regions like Simanchal, Kosi Belt.
Okay, okay. Sarthak?
So I think I would actually draw a little bit of my observations from the field, because I was just last evening I was interacting with some of the young voters in Samastipur, where I also visited 10 years ago, and I'm back in the same place, and I could notice that there is a lot of economic the rise in the economic activities. I could see there are more shops, there are more buildings, construction. The place looked more buzzing, right? With a lot of a lot of the political workers I found, like, of course, there is a rise in what can be seen as political entrepreneurs. Of course, I'm not talking about Prashant Kishore of that kind of scale, but what is happening, we see that there are karyakartas who are working for the political parties. And I was talking to some people, and they said that, yahi pe khat lenge, kuch kar lenge, business kar lenge. Uh, like, at one in Patna, I met one guy who's doing a BCA, and he's paying about 2.5, 3 lakh rupees for that degree in a good college in Patna. And he is like, there's no hope in Patna, and I have no future. I will have to go to Delhi after graduation. And I met this Yadav youth in Samastipur, and he is doing BCom. And he said that I'm also getting skilled in editing, and I'm doing wedding albums, and I'm doing. He now edits reel for the politician campaign, right?
Uh, uh,
So he's like, oh, I mean, we are a group of 7, 8 people. We have this skill, and we will make do. And there is a lot of business here. Why do I need to go outside? And he has benefited from some of the schemes that Nitish Kumar gave, like 2 lakh rupees, in which he bought a PC, he trained himself in editing software and other things. So I'm seeing this new. I mean, again, this is all anecdotal. Maybe there's not a part of
sure,
data set,
sure.
but this change or churning that, of course, you have to only, like, if you are extremely hopeless, or if you are extremely in that abject poverty, or in that belt now, which is 35 to 40% of the families, among the
Mm-hmm.
ABCs more so 45%,
Uh,
then you are actually going. If you are somewhere in the middle between, like a little above poverty, or even like in the middle, right? Yadavs again, and in somewhere in the middle, you are actually trying to remain in Bihar, take advantage of the slow and the very small openings that are emerging, but try to make your own and sustain your own, right? And that is also emerging from a kind of a horizontal leveling of political parties also. Right now, you don't have those vertical bonds wherein it will be like the kind of Congress patron plan, but you have several opportunities more, thanks to these new political parties which are emerging, including something like Prashant Kishore, which is creating more space for youth to get absorbed into the state, or find different activities. Of course, politics is one, but there are other several activities. And I think because I mean, of course, the difference between Bihar and any other state is each and every activity, economic and political, is very closely aligned with the state, right? There are lack of private opportunities, but these people seem to have made certain outlets for themselves here, and by upskilling or by getting their skills, to a level which is matching the demands here, they
mm,
do find that there is an opportunity. So I was actually very surprised to see that
mm,
earlier there were people who were moving to maybe Patna, or they were moving to different places. But here in Musri Gharari, which is about 120 kilometers from Patna, nobody thinks about going to Patna anymore. And like, going to
mm,
Patna is no more the craze. I mean,
mm,
साल में 4 बार जाते हैं, ठीक है. But it is something that they are actually making do with whatever is available here, and this has become a very thriving, buzzing marketplace. Similarly,
okay.
with this kind of things will be visible in many different places, maybe Muzaffarpur, Darbhanga, in Bhagalpur also. So I think something is changing in Bihar also.
Great. No, thank you, Sarthak and Nishant. We have also run out of time. So sorry if there were some questions I was not able to take. I tried to bring in as many questions as I could from you. Just to wrap up, since I love making predictions and getting it wrong, at the risk of that, here is what I think is going to happen. 2025 to me is going to be a very pivotal election for Bihar. Uh, Very similarly as it was in 1990 and 2005. And the reason why I think is that, like, so the reason why I say 1990 and 2005 were important election, because then they had sort of like shaped the politics thereafter, right? Both in terms of political discourse, but who came to power and those kind of things. So to me, 2025 will have, like, no matter who wins. So my prediction is not who's going to win, but on like the importance of this election. Because think of it, in some ways, BJP is a rising party, but yet they never had a chief minister. Unlikely they'll have it on their own this time as well. But if they continue to sort of like expand their footprint, then they would sort of like to dictate terms within the NDA coalition going forward. And especially that there are question marks on Nitish Kumar on multiple things. It's unlikely. So in that sense, both the era of Lalu Yadav and Nitish Kumar, in terms of their own personalities, is sort of like at the fag end, and you will see new politicians basically emerging. It's not like Tejasvi wasn't there, but in some ways, Lalu and Nitish, who dominated Bihar politics for 35 years, that phase sort of like ends in some ways with 2025. Two, I think we have a new entrant, Prashant Kishore. We'll see. It's a test case for a political strategist, right? Like being behind the sort of like a backroom strategist and then being in the front. Those two are very, very different things, and we'll see like what he chooses to do once the results are out. So Bihar politics, which was binodal in some ways for last 20-25 years, if there is a significant entry by Prashant Kishore, then we might see some sort of like fragmentation in that way. And third is basically there are going to be important questions within sort of like what is definitely going to change after 2025 election, the balance of power within alliances, within parties. So those two or three things is what I think is going to happen, no matter who wins on November 14. So thank you again, Sarthak and Nishant, for joining us, and thank you everyone for asking such insightful questions and staying till the end. I do want to remind you, you will have soon information about a post-election event on November 17th. Please do join us. So thank you again. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.